Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for joining me for today's video. In it, I wanted to have a little bit of fun, and something going on right now that everybody is a part of is the March and the madness. So I wanted to go over a bracket together, walk you through some of my picks for it, start to do a little bit of a deep dive when we get to the Sweet 16 and take you all the way to that championship game, and I'll give you my pick for this year's national champion. But before we get into that, if you guys are new to the channel, if you haven't done it yet, if you're enjoying the content, please consider liking and subscribing. Your support means so very much to me. It helps me out a ton and enables me to do what I love, and I love to be able to engage with you guys, so get those comments going. With that done, let's get into this version of a Relentless Rundown. If you guys want to follow along with me, I am starting in the West. I'm going left to right, so we'll go from the West to the South, down to the East, and then to the Midwest. We'll finish it off, and then once we get into that Sweet 16, we'll break it down a little bit more. So as far as the West bracket, not a ton of upsets do I see in this one. I think it's basically gonna be chalk all the way through. I really like Gonzaga. Obviously, I would say most people have them as the favorite for the tourney to win it all, but they've been there a couple times in the last 5 years, haven't been able to seal the deal. Yukon is a team that really intrigues me. They have a pedigree for success. They've been there before and they've done it. Arkansas is a team that might be a little bit of a dark horse. Not everybody knows about them, but they've been playing some solid ball. Texas Tech and Alabama, I think they meet in the round of 32. Many people don't know this about me on the channel yet, but I am a hardcore Duke Blue Devil fan. I have been since back in the days of Trajan Langdon, Greg Paulus, and all them boys. I think that they get past Fullerton, and then of course they meet up with Michigan State, which seems to be something that the committee has tried to get together year after year. It seems like Duke and Michigan State find a way to play each other in the tournament. Of course, part of that is all the success that they have had. Into the South region we go. Of course, I like Arizona, and I think Seton Hall squeaks by TCU. Houston and Illinois, that's chalk for me as well. But I think that Colorado State is maybe a little bit overseeded here, and I like Michigan to pull the upset. We know that they've had runs in the recent past, and they are going to do it again. I have them taking out the Rams. Right below them, I love the Loyola Chicago story, but I think that their time has passed, at least for this year. Ohio State gets by them, and Villanova, of course, goes on to beat Delaware. Into the East, Baylor, chalk, defending national championships. They are going to be around for a while, I think, in this tournament. As far as North Carolina, I love this team. I hate this team, of course. Being a Duke Blue Devil fan, I think that they have an ability to win a game or two if the right team shows up. Now, I think that they get by Marquette for sure. After that, it's a big question mark. Can they hit their threes? St. Mary's, I think, flies under the radar a little bit, playing in the WAC, and so they're going to get by Indiana just fine. UCLA, love them from last year. A lot of the same key pieces. Coming into this year, they move on as well. For whatever reason, this is probably my biggest upset pick of the whole bracket. I like Virginia Tech. I don't know what it is. They got hot towards the end of the year, and something about them just has me feeling like they're going to make a little bit of a run. I have them actually upsetting Texas in the first round. Purdue goes by Yale. Murray State, mid-major. I think they get by San Francisco, smaller mid-major, and Kentucky, of course, beats St. Peter's. Finally, to the Midwest region, we go. Kansas is one of my favorite teams in this tournament. They easily get by Texas Southern. I think Creighton has a slight upset here over San Diego State. Iowa gets by Richmond, and South Dakota State pulls off an epic upset of Providence. They are my 113 seed to make it to the next round. Right below them, another upset I have brewing is Iowa State pulling it out over LSU. I just like what they bring to the table, and I think that LSU comes up a little bit short when it matters most. Wisconsin, powerhouse in the Big Ten, they take care of business, although Colgate probably has a better chance than most would think of being able to pick them off. USC, they get by Miami at the 7 seed, and Auburn has no issues with Jacksonville State. Let's move now to the round of 32 and back up to the West region. I don't think Gonzaga is going to have any issues. I think they move on to the Sweet 16 without problems. And Yukon is able to pull a slight upset over Arkansas, who can be hot and cold. Alabama moves on. They upset Texas Tech, who has an excellent defense, but I think just not enough in the tank for them. And of course, I gotta go with my blue. The Devils take over Michigan State to get to the Sweet 16. Into the South, I have Arizona over Seton Hall, Illinois over Houston, and Tennessee ends a little bit of a run by Michigan. They get the dub. They have been playing excellent as of late after that SEC tourney run. Ohio State with the upset over Villanova. I don't know why. I think the size for Villanova might give them a little bit of issues, and it is not enough to carry them on. So go to the East now. We have Baylor over Marquette. I don't think there's any issues there. My little bit of a Cinderella story, St. Mary's. They take out UCLA, who can't quite get back to what they did last year. Virginia Tech keeps it going. They upset Purdue, who I think is an excellent team in the Big Ten, but maybe got a little bit beat up with all the physicality in that conference. Kentucky rolls Murray State, no problems. To the Midwest, Kansas over Creighton, not a question in my mind. Iowa takes care of the Jackrabbits of South Dakota State, and Wisconsin moves on past Iowa State. We can't get either of those double-digit seeds into the Sweet 16. Auburn takes a fall. USC is able to slide into the Sweet 16. I just feel like the Trojans have it when it matters most. They're able to pull that upset. At the Sweet 16, gonna dive a little bit deeper into these teams. So we start with the West and that Gonzaga and Yukon game. I think that Yukon is really explosive. They have excellent offensive rebounders, second in the country in that category, so they get to the glass. They can get in trouble, however, if they're not getting to the free throw line. They lost 6 out of their 9 games that they did not attempt at least 15 free throws, and that could be an issue against the Zags, who play very smart and disciplined defense. Yukon themselves are tenacious on the defensive end, but it is not enough, and the Zags keep rolling. One spot below, and we look at the Alabama and Duke game. Now, as a Blue Devil fan, I don't want to be a homer here, but I think that they get by the Crimson Tide. Now, Alabama, if they can get hot, they have an ability to make an even deeper run than this. They shoot nearly half of their shots from three-point range, but they are sub 300 in the nation in three-point percentage. So while they are chucking them all over the place, not a ton of them are going in. When they do take shots from the 2-point range, however, they fall. Alabama ranked 9th in 2-point percentage, and they can beat or lose to just about anyone, depending on if those shots are falling. I think Duke plays good enough defense to be able to slow Bama down, and they advance to the Elite 8. Into the South region, and that Arizona-Illinois Fighting Illini game. And I think this one might be close at first, but I think Arizona just has too much and they pull away. Now, for the Illini, there's plenty of NCAA tournament experience on this team, and that often is really big when the lights shine brightest. Illinois has one of the toughest players in college basketball to stop in Kofi Cockburn, who averaged over 10 rebounds and 21 points a game. His team is potentially better, I think, than last year's #1 seed, and it's certainly much deeper than they were last year. But in a close game, their weakness could be Cockburn's free throw shooting. He shoots it at just over 65%, and I think that might be their undoing here. The Wildcats advance. One rung down on the ladder is the Tennessee-Ohio State game. Now, the Buckeyes certainly have star power, led by first-team All-Big Ten big E.J. Liddell, as well as Big Ten Freshman of the Year Malachi Branham. They lead a very efficient offense. They've made it, however, out of the second round of the NCAA tournament just one time in 11 seasons under Chris Holtmann. He has a 11-17 record in 28 career NCAA and conference tournament games. Not great. Losing 2 straight They're not exactly on a roll, but I think they have enough to get to the Sweet 16 spot where their undersized front court is going to end up biting them. I have Tennessee overtaking the Buckeyes. Back to the East region, I talked a little bit about my love of the Gales of St. Mary's. I don't think that there's much of a chance that they're able to overtake Baylor, but they do have some things going for them. They're one of the best defensive teams in the country, and that always seems to travel well in March. They are top 10 in three-point attempts, assists, and offensive rebounds allowed. They pressure you into bad shots, and they do not give you many to work with in the first place, so that always plays to their advantage. However, their slow tempo also hurts them a little bit. It can be a disadvantage as they do not always get the best shot, and I think they have not enough to overcome what the Baylor Bears bring to the table. A step down, we go to the Virginia Tech, my Cinderella story team, against the Kentucky Wildcats, the Blue Bloods, the powerhouse. And for Virginia Tech, the Hokies have won 13 out of their last 15 games. They got hot when it mattered most. They were able to turn it on. They won 4 ACC tournament games in 4 days. They beat Clemson, Notre Dame, North Carolina, and Duke to get into the dance. It was an impressive run. Virginia Tech is very experienced. They have 3 fifth-year seniors and 2 juniors starting. They have the nation's 4th-ranked three-point shooting attack, and they can also score inside a little bit as well. Now to the Midwest, and we'll start with the Kansas and Iowa matchup, the 1 versus the 5. So for Iowa, they boast one of the most efficient offenses in the entire field. The Hawkeyes are led by soon-to-be NBA lottery pick Keegan Murray. This guy averages over 23 points a game. That is most among all Power 5 scorers this season. They attack you from pretty much everywhere. They have 3 other scorers that score in double digits. That includes Jordan Bohannon, Patrick McCaffrey, and Chris Murray. Their defense often has been their undoing. Iowa ranked 5th in the Big Ten this year in defensive efficiency. They've been able to pick that up a little bit. I think that helps carry them to this spot where they will ultimately fall to the Jayhawks. One step down in the bracket, and we have that Wisconsin matchup with USC. Now, I did love me some Auburn, but after winning just 3 out of their back 6 due to that shaky backcourt, I just could not pick them to carry it on to that Sweet 16 spot. Now, USC gets here, but I think that's the end of the line for them. Wisconsin brings far too much to the table for them to be able to handle. On to the Elite 8, and this is where my Homer heart dies just a little bit. We have the Gonzaga matchup with the Blue Devils. We saw this matchup a couple of years ago in the Final Four where my Duke Blue Devils were able to get the dub, move on, and win a national championship. However, I think that it is a different story this time around. Duke does have one of the best scoring teams in the entire country. They have 3 players that are going to become 2022 first-round picks, and another 2 of them that are in the conversation to be there. Paolo Banchero has all of the tools. He's a locked top 5 pick. Banchero, AJ Griffin, Mark Williams, Wendell Moore Jr., and Trevor Keels all average double digits for the Blue Devils. Their biggest weakness, though, could be foul trouble, as this is not a very deep team. We've seen that before in Duke's past teams. They could struggle against an elite team, especially like the Zags. If one of those bigs gets a cheap one early and gets in foul trouble, they are really physical in the front court, but I think that plays to their disadvantage here. We saw this matchup earlier on the year. Duke was able to get the win. I think it's revenge time for the Zags. To the south we go in the matchup of Arizona and Tennessee. So for the Volunteers, they were able to win their first SEC tournament since 1979. They come in a very confident bunch because of it. Carrying that number 3 defense in the nation in adjusted efficiency, they have what it takes to get to this spot. If the SEC tournament version of the Vols shows up, they could make the Final Four. I think that's the possibility and probably their ceiling. But they have sub 180 numbers, both in 2-point shooting and free throws, and that is likely to screw that up. The Volunteers went 1-6 against teams in the top 25 on KenPom, and those were their 7 worst offensive outings of the season. And I think ultimately that proves to be the difference, and Arizona moves on. Back to the East, and one of the most anticipated games in the bracket for me, if it gets this far, I have number 1 Baylor against number 2 Kentucky. When we look at Baylor, this team is all about depth. They have 6 players that are averaging nearly 9 points a game. They are a top 10 team in the nation in scoring margin. They win by an average of 13.4 points per game, which is simply incredible. The Bears could become the first back-to-back national champions since Florida did it all the way back in 2006 and 2007, but they're going to have to battle through some injuries to get there, and I think the coaching, the pedigree is going to carry them far, but I think they finally stumble against this Kentucky team. It's number 1 Kansas and number 3 Wisconsin facing off in the Midwest. And for Wisconsin, they were able to hold a share of the Big Ten regular season title, and that was no small feat because in the preseason poll, they were picked to finish 10th in the Big Ten. Stud Johnny Davis went from going to a 7-point per game scorer to the Big Ten Player of the Year as a sophomore. He helped carry the Badgers. This is the fastest Wisconsin team when we look at tempo in 20 years, but I think their lack of depth is going to cost them at this point in the tournament. So this means that I have 3 number 1 seeds and the 2 seeded Kentucky Wildcats in my Final Four. I didn't do anything crazy. I didn't try to get cute. I think that these are the teams that have what it takes to win a national championship, and it's going to be a battle between these 4 to win it all. For Kentucky in this left side of the bracket, they get the Zags, and the Wildcats have the best big man in the field in Wooden Award candidate Oscar Tshiebwe. Probably didn't say that right. He's going to dominate the paint. He's going to make life miserable for his opponents. And this is one of the most experienced and the most balanced teams that Kentucky has had in a long while. Kentucky is one of 6 teams that was able to rank in the top 30, both in offensive and in defensive efficiency. And that has been a commonality among national championship winners over the last 20 years. They're really going to be a tough out, but I think the Zags are just a little bit better, and I think it is their year. I feel them getting back to the tournament for the 3rd time in recent memory, I think in 6 years, and they are going to do it with style, beating that blue blood school in Kentucky. In the right side of the bracket, I have number 1 Kansas and number 1 Arizona. I think this is going to be a dog fight. For Arizona, they are led by Tommy Lloyd, who has done an awesome job in his first season since leaving Mark Few's tutelage, and he plays a very similar up-tempo game to what they play in Gonzaga. They use that to sweep both the Pac-12 regular season and conference tournament titles. Benedict Mathurin was going to come off the board early in the draft. He was Pac-12 Player of the Year. The Wildcats have a pair of 7-footers at their disposal as well, including Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year, Christian Koloko. Their question mark is going to be their youth, as it's been for a while. They have just 2 players with NCAA tournament experience, and their depth is certainly going to be tested with Kirk Chris going down in that Pac-12 quarterfinals game, and I think that is too much for them to ultimately overcome, and I like Kansas to be able to pull it off. This leaves us with an epic battle between Kansas and Gonzaga for the tournament title. We'll start with Kansas. They have Big 12 Player of the Year, Ochai Agbaji, and finally have Remy Martin back and healthy. He's back in that rotation, and that gives Bill Self 7 solid players to be able to work with in his rotation. They usually use a 4-guard lineup, and that is going to score plenty of points for him. And when they are on, the Jayhawks are one of the best teams in the country. I think that they get hot here and are able to ride that to a bid in the tournament game. Their weakness is certainly going to be in the paint. I think that they cannot match up there very effectively, and that's ultimately going to be their undoing when we look at Gonzaga, because I love the speed that they play with. Their front court and their combination of bigs is something that they've never had with Mark Few. All-American Drew Timme and potential number 1 draft pick Chet Holmgren are a really hard duo to stop. Some of the best passing in the country comes in Spokane, Washington, where I reside. They are extremely well coached. We know that. They've been here before. I believe that they are able to overcome that lack of physicality that we saw last year this time around. The Zags have more NCAA tournament wins over the last 5 years than any other program in the country, and this is the year they finally seal the deal and bring it home. I have the Bulldogs of Gonzaga 54, Jayhawks 51. Mark Few is finally able to get that elusive first NCAA tournament championship. And that is all I have for you guys. I really hope you enjoyed this type of content, walking through the tournament bracket. Let me know in the comments below if you didn't. I do this for you guys. If you are new to the channel, please consider giving me a like and subscribe. Your support means so very much to me. Helps me out a bunch as well. I really appreciate it. This is Relentless Press. I'm your host, Abraham Opatz, and we'll see you next time.